Hey guys, so before we get into this, I just wanted to apologize for this video in particular taking so long to get up and also for not posting for quite some time. I recently moved and because of a little bit of a mix-up or confusion, I have not had internet for quite some time, and no, that's not a solid excuse, but honestly, it is what it is, and we will be back to a regular schedule, back to our regularly scheduled programming, and once again, I'm very sorry, but it is what it is. Sorry. Hello interwebs and welcome back. I'm Shanna and this is where I share my life and stories and adventures and opinions and whatever else I feel like. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a lot of different things actually. For those of you who don't know, it is coming up on my 2-year anniversary living here in Japan. So I decided that in honor of my 2-year anniversary, I wanted to see what kinds of questions some of you might have about living abroad, traveling abroad, living in Japan, anything you could think of really. So I put out on a couple different social media outlets a place where you could ask some questions, and here are the questions that I got. So the first question that I got was, in Japan, how much would a family of 6 need? 3 adults, 1 kid, and 2 dogs. So this is a really interesting question because honestly, I don't know that type of family size. I know that for me, if we're talking just month-to-month expenses for daily living, got rent, you have your utilities, you have your health insurance, you have food and drinks and whatever else. You also have your transportation depending on where you live and where you work. So if we add all of that together, my monthly living expenses are probably somewhere between 150,000 yen to 170,000 yen. I don't know, that's just rough math. It might be less, it might be more, but that doesn't include the money that I have to transfer home to cover my student loans and things like that. So you have to factor those sorts of things in as well. So it can actually get pretty expensive living here in Japan, especially because public transportation is pretty pricey. Someone else asked, I'm doing a research paper on the Japanese school system. Any facts, tips, or websites that could be useful? So there's 2 websites that I know of that you could check out. You could use tokyo-icc.jp or mext.go.jp. Now, Mext is actually the people who design the curriculum for schools, so they would probably be the best place to look. Anything else you wanted to know about the school system itself? I'm actually in the middle of changing jobs, so I'll be working in the Japanese school system rather than working eikaiwa. So I would be happy to answer anything that I can about that, and if I don't know, I can talk to my colleagues, talk to my friends, and find out as well. Another person told me I should talk about dating in Japan and how it is practically non-existent, and I completely disagree with that. Maybe when you're in the bigger cities, I have heard that it is a lot more difficult to get kind of into the dating scene. I live in the countryside, I live closer to Kyoto, I don't live near Tokyo. Dating is pretty easy here. It's not hard to meet people. The hardest part about living and dating in Japan is not going on dates. It's the strange interaction between people here. So I'll have to make a whole separate video about that, but it's interesting. That's all I can say. So the next question was, I want to bring my spouse when I move to Japan. Is it going to be hard for him to find work? If you don't know, no biggie. It's really a broad question. Any advice would help. So this depends on a few different things. If you're coming to Japan and you're able to get a visa, that means he can get a spousal visa, which I believe will allow him to do pretty much any part-time, maybe full-time job. He won't be limited that way. Because of that, he can likely get a job, especially if you're in a city doing any sort of bartending, or he can even get a job at eikaiwas. If you can get a visa without a 4-year degree through spousal visa or some other means, most eikaiwas, I know Nova, will hire you as long as you speak fluent English, pretty much. If he doesn't speak Japanese, it might be a little more difficult if you guys are living in the countryside for him to find a job. But if he does speak Japanese, then that's one more thing that he can add to his resume that will help him out. So honestly, I don't think it'll be too difficult for him to find a job. There's lots of websites that you can check out. I will leave links to a bunch of those in the description down below, and they're for jobs that aren't just teaching jobs as well. So the next question is, do I need to learn Japanese? The answer to that question is no. You do not need to learn Japanese. However, if you're going to be here for more than a year, I do recommend trying to learn Japanese, at least basic Japanese, because you're going into Japanese culture, and that's just the polite thing to do in any country that you're going to, is to at least try to learn the language of that country. And also, if you're going to be living in the countryside, not the city, you're gonna have a difficult time if you don't speak Japanese. I came to Japan, I knew 2 words, and my pronunciation was horrific, and I was very lucky coming here, even living in the countryside, but not everybody gets that lucky. Not everybody meets the people that I met who were so nice and so kind and so helpful. It's not impossible to live here and get by without knowing any Japanese, but it'll make your life a lot easier if you learn some. Next question. I read that we have to carry our passport with us at all times, or is it a good idea to just have a copy with us instead of our actual passport? So if you are a resident living in Japan, you do not need your passport with you at all times. However, you do need your resident card with you at all times. And if you don't have it, that can result in some serious problems if somebody asks you for it, which they can at any time. However, if you are traveling in Japan, yes, please keep your passport on you. If you travel outside of the country while you're living in Japan, please keep your passport on you. And I always keep a copy of my passport in the majority of my bags, just in case there's ever an issue. It's not necessary, it's just me being paranoid. Someone else asked, do you pay taxes? Yes, I pay taxes. Now, the company I am currently working for does not take care of my taxes, so I actually have to put away all of that money every month to pay my taxes at the end of the year. And the company I am changing to does do taxes for me, so that is going to be really nice. I will say, however, your taxes for your first year are going to be really cheap comparatively. However, your second year and from then on, they do get more expensive. The city taxes are what will kill you. Your income tax isn't so bad. City taxes are really expensive, especially if you live near a big city or if you're in a historical area. I was also asked, how did you find your job? To be completely honest with you, I don't remember which website I used to find my first job here. It was either ESL Starter or Gaijin Pots. I don't remember though, but I will link those below, as well as the other job searching websites that I also kind of talked about earlier. My new job, I was recommended to the job by another friend who was in contact with kind of the area manager. So it was a little bit of a different situation there. But there are lots of websites you can use. I'll leave everything below. And if you have any specific questions about any of the jobs or the specific websites themselves, please let me know and I'll try my best to answer those questions. Another question that I saw was, is it even a possibility to take your dog with you when teaching abroad? Yes, it is a possibility in Japan to bring your dog here. However, it is really difficult. They kind of have some serious laws surrounding bringing animals into Japan, and the dogs have to go into quarantine for quite some time, which is the reason why I didn't bring my dog, because he was a little bit older at the time. He had a lot of anxiety issues, and surviving quarantine wouldn't have been a thing for him. So you need to take those things into account. However, it is possible, it's just slightly mindokusai. So another question I came across was, what is your insight on tattoos and piercings in the work environment in Japan? And this one's a little bit complicated because it depends on a number of things, including what your tattoos are, what your piercings are, where they are, and also what your job is. So working a kaiwa, you can get away with a little bit more than you can get away with if you're working in an actual school system. And that's because of some very old school Japanese mindsets that a lot of people still carry here when related to things like tattoos and piercings. And it probably also varies depending upon where you live. Because I live in the countryside and I live in a little bit more traditional area, things are a little bit more strict. I will say, however, that a lot of younger Japanese people do have the mindset that, you know, things are changing, you are foreign, your tattoos are very obviously not gang related, so it's not an issue, but it's just difficult. It's really difficult. I would say take your piercings out, put whatever clear piercing in you can. Try to keep your tattoos covered as best you can when you're at work. Depending on your job, you may also have to keep them covered outside of work. I would say if you have tattoos and you have piercings and you don't want to have to keep them covered outside of work, try to make sure you're living not in the city that you're going to be working in. So for example, I'm living in Hikone. If I'm also working in Hikone, I probably need to keep my tattoos and piercings covered. However, if I'm working in Hikone, but then I want to live in, say, Omihachiman, while I'm in Omihachiman, I might be able to get away with showing things a little more. So it varies. I would definitely just be careful. And the last question I'm going to cover for today is, how much money do I need before I travel to Japan to teach? So most jobs, most places recommend a minimum of $2,000 saved before you come here. That should cover your initial startup costs for the things to put into your apartment, all of your food and expenses for the first 2 months while you're here, because when you come here, the way the pay works with a lot of these companies, you're not going to get paid for the first month and a half, 2 months that you're here. So you need to make sure you can cover all of those expenses. If you have expenses back home, make sure you have enough money to cover those bills as well. I came to Japan and I had $5,000 initially. Part of that went toward my flight and the other part of it went toward decorating my apartment, buying the things that I need. It went toward clothes, it went toward food, it went toward all of the different expenses that I had here. I would say it's better to be safe than sorry. $5,000 was a good amount. It was definitely more than I needed, but I would plan for about that much just to be safe, especially if your apartment and your guarantor payment and your down payment and whatnot is not actually covered by your job. And that pretty much wraps it up for this one. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you haven't yet, please also hit the subscribe button. And let me know if you have any other questions down in the comments below. I would love to answer more questions and do another one of these. Questions can be about anything. It can be about Japan. It can be about traveling. It can be about any of the other countries that I've been to. It can be about what my favorite math problem. It can be about anything, literally anything. I'll do my best to try and answer your questions and help you guys out. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye! especially helpful if you're going to be living in the countryside, because it's not as common to find somebody out here who speaks Japanese. Or if you have expensive blah, blah, blah.